Hey guys, is it working for you? I'm trying to figure out if I'm actually live right now because I seem to have some issues with YouTube. Uh, oh, there you go. Fuck. God damn it. Ooh, ooh, buddy. Come on, webcam, work with me here. Work with me. There. Oh my goodness. Stupid son of a fucking piece of shit. Okay. Hey guys, we are streaming, finally. I don't know if anyone is in the chat right now, so we'll wait a little bit. If you're here, please reveal yourself. Otherwise, yeah, I guess you can hide. It doesn't matter, but I'd rather be working. I'd rather kind of review stuff if people are here as well. Otherwise, it's not pointless, but it definitely doesn't make it any easier per se. Um, yeah, let's check this for a second. Hey, Caleb Carr is here. I guess it did work. I'm still trying to figure it out, making sure everything is working. Hold on. How are you doing, Caleb? Cool. I figured as much. You having a good day so far? Oh, oh my gosh. Traffic was insane today. Just hated it. I hate driving in the traffic. All right. Hey, nice. Let's see. Didn't we see some of your stuff last time? Yeah, we were talking about this last time. It was good. It was good. You said you're going to be working on it more, so that's cool. I'm excited about that. Man, YouTube is really like jamming up my. Hey, Aiden. Yeah, I saw your boards. We'll go over it right now. See, it's right here on my desktop. Yeah, no problem. You don't have to apologize for the traffic. There was something going on tonight in LA, so there was like a crazy concert and people were just terrible at driving. Traffic. Okay, this is what I don't understand about traffic. Sorry if the volume's a little too loud. I'm a little shouty right now, but the thing about traffic that I always upsets me is for some reason people drive super slow when they're in traffic. Like, let's say, let's say we have. Let me do a drawing of this. Let's say we have. This is the like. God damn it, Photoshop. All right, there's a one street I have to drive on, and it's basically a 2-lane street, and that's it. But for whatever reason, this is my car right here. This is me. And there's another car in front of me. And that car loves to drive slow. Like, it loves to go as slow as possible and make more space. Like, if everyone else is going fast and going normal speed, this car right here likes to drive as slow as possible. I'm like, do you like sitting in traffic? Does anyone like sitting in traffic? Like, why do you have to drive even slower than we're already moving? Like, I don't get it. I don't get people who are like, yeah, traffic is good. Like, I like being in traffic. I like getting to my destination late and not being able to control how long it takes me to get there. The thing about traffic is that there is a limit to how fast you can get to somewhere, right? Like, let's say it takes you 10 minutes to get to destination A, or destination B. So you're going from point A to point B, and the fastest you can go is 10 minutes, right? But with traffic, it can be unlimited. It's no longer 10 minutes. It can be 3 hours. There's no limit as to why you can't drive slower or not move at all, right? So you already, when you plan around traffic, it's impossible because it can go from 10 minutes to infinity. It literally can be infinity. You could be sitting there forever. Let's say there's 2 cars that break down in front of you. You're not moving. You're going to be stuck there forever. So for me, I'm just like, traffic is the worst in every possible way. There's nothing good about it. And people who like to sit in it should just get out of the car and roll on the grass and just get off the street. Like, it just upsets me to no end. Anyways, I got that out of my system. So let's look at some storyboards, because that's what everyone's here for. And that's what I was doing all day. So I'm already warmed up. I'm feeling good. Min-Maze isn't here to remind me, but I remember. It's joke time. Ooh. What did the tree say to the squirrel? Give up? It said, leave me alone. It kind of sounds like Jackie Chan. Leave me alone. Why you bothering me so much? You hear me say that? It's okay. I'm Chinese too. Anyways, let's skip over that joke real quickly and get to something less racist. All right. So Aiden has submitted some storyboard work, monster fight. I have no idea what this is about, so we'll go through it together and then we'll talk about it. So we're starting on a tree, or a forest, I mean. Someone runs in, run. Cut closer, he's running, looks behind him. We cut, run. Is this a new shot? He's running, and then he kind of looks behind him. I guess the camera tracks around him. And then we cut to a new shot, and it starts on one of them running, and then it trucks out, and then we cut back to the backside, and then someone runs in. He stops, rears up. We get a close up of his eyes, and then bonk, he gets hit in the head with a rock and then a pole. And we snap truck out, or we cut to a new shot of someone coming in, lands. He stands up. He goes, oh, smiles, and then they look, and then they're about to fight some more. Okay, pretty straightforward. Hey, that guy. Are you guys not getting a sound right now? There should be sound. It looks like there is sound on my end. Let me know if you guys are having any issues with the sound. But so it's pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, chase sequences are always a little bit challenging, but the thing I think you have going for you right now is that you keep the screen direction good. The person's always traveling left to right. The new person that comes in from the right, so it's a surprise to the werewolf. There are some things that I would watch out for, specifically jump cuts, because right now there are a couple of shots where I think it will jump cut, and if we remember what a jump cut is, that is when two shots look the same between cuts. So let's say This is shot 1 and then shot 2. Alright, so a jump cut would be like, let's say we're looking at someone. Oh man, I've been using Storyboard Pro all day, so all my hotkeys are off. Or like I'm using all the Storyboard Pro hotkeys and they're not the same as Photoshop. So let's say we have this guy smiling here talking, right? And then the next shot we have someone else talking, but this is a different person. This person's has hair like that, right? This would be a jump cut. Let's say this is OTS like that and OTS like that. This would be a jump cut because their silhouette, the person's silhouette in shot A or shot 1. Let's get a different color. Is about the same silhouette as the person in shot 2, even though they're different people. So what ends up happening is when you have jump cuts like that, it confuses the audience because they'll think this person here is the same person as this shot, is the same person in this shot, when they're two different people. It seems kind of ridiculous to think that, but it does happen, and you want to prevent having similar silhouettes between shots when you cut. So that is how this is a jump cut, and you don't want jump cuts. So the trick sometimes, or the problem that arises when you're doing stuff like this, is that you keep in mind that the truck out that you started, the furthest trucked out looks fine because this shot and this shot have totally different silhouettes, right? Like this is a shot before, and then this is a shot after. So you think like, oh yeah, these are two different silhouettes. But you have to remember that you actually started from here. This green box is where you started. So if you look at that and this, it's a very similar shape and silhouette. Unless the werewolf is running in, which you need to indicate. So let's just show this. All right. Now when you look at it like this, they kind of have similar silhouettes, right? Like before it looked fine because we were in the wide shot, but when you kind of overlay them like that, they kind of fill up the same space. They kind of match a little bit too much, especially since it's a running pose. My suggestion would be to have the werewolf run in or have it go to the guy's POV shot. So, all right, let's go back a little bit because I think this is fine. You want to I think you can heighten the effect of the chase at the start by having the first shot, this shot with the forest, be a panning shot, right? So you're already panning through the forest. You're like the camera's running through the forest, and then this person gains in. So it gives you the idea that someone's chasing him. He runs by. This is fine. Where he cuts to the close-up. Make sure you indicate the background. And then what we'll do is we'll cut to his POV when he turns to look at the camera like that, right? Like I think that's a cool shot, him looking back towards the camera. We'll cut to his POV instead of a profile shot because I think the profile shot, because I think after he turns back, we want to get his POV. We don't really want to see a profile shot. We want to see the character's point of view. So wait, let's take this one step at a time. I keep jumping out over. So this shot here, let me clip it. Man, YouTube is like super chunky on Streamlabs, unfortunately. It's really gunking up my system. Oh, I think it's because it doesn't play well with Streamlabs, unfortunately. But I think it's an easier platform for people to come to. But that's neither here nor there right now. What we're talking about is some forest action, some storyboard action. So let's focus on that. So, all right. You can either have it be a panning shot like this. Right, I think you guys have seen this before. When you start a chase sequence, you're having the camera's already panning with the action. Like, people might not be in the shot, but it's already panning already, as though the camera were trying to catch up to someone or ahead of someone slightly. So let's draw the trees in. Let's draw the trees in. Give it a little bit cool shapes. You might want to change up these shapes because they're too similar. Just give it a little bit more fanciness. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just whoop, give it a little bit of humps and a little bit of design stuff. Give it some fun stuff in the middle like that. So everything's panning already, right? We're panning across. We're panning with it. We see things already blurring past. See the stuff in the background. And you can make this pan as long as you want. You can have it as long as you want. It just depends on how much time you have for the shot. Oh, damn. That is not good. So we can make it longer or shorter, however you want. We'll just make it a little bit longer so that we can add in the shot type framing that you had before. Right? Because at some point we want to introduce a character. That's right. This will be the ending frame right here. End frame. Hey Memes. Hey Ethan. We're doing it on YouTube today because Twitch people at Amazon are protesting the terrible work conditions, and I agree with them. I think the work conditions that they have their people working at the warehouses is pretty terrible. They have to work something like 8-hour days, but they are not really given proper rest, and so a lot of times people will actually spend their rest period going to the bathroom, because during work hours, if they don't do enough work, they get docked and they get in trouble. So there's a whole John Oliver video on how these warehouses are terrible. Like the Amazon warehouse is terrible. People are walking like 15 to 20 miles a day for work, like just walking back and forth grabbing stuff to send out, and it's really killing people, and it's not good. And I think even though they raised their not minimum wage, they raised what people are getting paid to $15 an hour, it's still kind of unreasonable to ask. So Twitch is owned by Amazon, so we're switching over to YouTube for now, which is, there is some irony in that because Google is not really, they've kind of dropped their model of don't do evil and have engaged in some pretty terrible practices recently, but yeah, what can we do right now? So that's the reason why I'm on YouTube today. So in the original shot here, you had both trees kind of like in the foreground, middle ground. You can also frame things with stuff in the background too. If this is in the background, it still kind of works to silhouette stuff, even though this one's in the foreground. It'll give it a little bit more depth, just a little bit. Another thing that I like to use in forest scenes is if it's a jungle, I always love to use like vines, because you can use it to indicate depth. You can use it to frame things. So I don't think it's that type of forest. So another thing I'll do, besides adding in just a bunch of trees in the background, which there always are a lot of trees. Sometimes I'll use like mountains, sometimes I'll use rocks. There's a lot of stuff you can put into force, which is nice to layer things. So let's start off the first shot with this long pan where it's like, so imagine in your head that we're running past, the camera is maybe like a steady cam, and we're running past, and we end up on this shot, right? We can either end up on this shot, or we can keep having the background pan, and we can do like something like right in BG going that way to indicate that the BG is moving. Maybe it can be like BG cycle, whatever's like, if we want to cycle the background so it's still moving. So that's the end of shot 1. What we're gonna do now is smash that down. So this is 1. Shot 1, or scene 1, panel 1. This is scene 1, panel 2. And then this one, then we'll have the guy run in. We'll start to draw him here like this. He's gonna start off frame. So what you have to write for this stuff is write in. You draw the arrow like he's running, and you write in to indicate he's running into frame. If it's a cycled BG, then you would just do that. But instead of in, you write gain, like it gains into frame, like he's gaining, he speeds up into frame. Does that make sense? Pound 3, pound 2. Is it still streaming for you guys? I'm not sure if the chat has frozen for me. Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Glad you guys are still here. Otherwise, I'd be really upset because then I'm like, oh no, YouTube. Keeps going. Oh, cool. I never knew it was called that. It's still going, still streaming. Okay, cool. It's either, you can either do in or gain. It depends on what you want to say. Gain is more appropriate for when someone, if the camera is still moving and then someone comes in and catches up to the camera, right? So gain is used when the camera is moving, is panning along something, and then that person slowly comes into frame. That's gaining. But you can also use in, where if the background is still moving, you can use in. Gain is just more specific, where it's like the person catches up to the camera. A good example of that would be the scene in, what was it called? The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. You know when she's running and she gains into camera? Let me see if I can pull up that clip. Is this the one? Nope. Is this the one? Nope. Clip. Is this the one? Does this have it? Nope. 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 Oh, here's the one. Here's the clip. All right. Let's not get demonetized or anything like that. So here she's running, right? So she's running. And then what's going to happen is she falls off frame, right? But the camera is still moving at this point. The camera's still moving, still panning, and she gains back in right here. And that's what I mean by, like, imagine the background moving and then the person runs up into frame. The character is moving and the background is moving at the same time. That is when you would use gain. You could write in, but gain is more specific. and then she runs off screen like that. If you were to board out a sequence like this, you need to indicate that the background is moving by having these arrows here, this where it says BG, like that, right? You need to indicate that the background's still moving throughout all your panels, and you need to kind of draw it out. So especially on a shot like this, if it's going to be a long one, you have to draw either a long background out, or you can do it Scooby-Doo style where you can just have the background loop over and over and over. But either way, you have to make sure the background keeps moving in your storyboards. Anyways, so he gains in, he's running, runs in. Maybe give him another pose after this too, where he's still running. A second pose where his arms back up. Minmay says, I watched the movie recently. It's really good. Yeah, it's a super good movie. I really love that movie. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's very smart in a lot of ways. I think the story is fun. There's a lot of twists. There's a lot of turns. It's a good movie. It's a winner. Whereas the kids say, it's a bop. Or does that not apply to... movies and only music? For run cycles and any type of action where it repeats, you want to give them at least 2 poses that they can cycle between. This is kind of a bad running pose, but because it's not matching the action. The thing about running is you have to be careful with their head position and their body position, because a lot of times people draw people running straight up and down, and that's not usually how running works. Running is very much the person is leaning forward, so their center of gravity changes, so their head can't be straight over the middle of their feet. It changes because you have forward momentum. Anyways, here's what I mean by giving them 2 poses. So this is, if you're going to have someone run through stuff, you want to give them 2 poses. You want to give them like a pose A and then give them another pose B so that they can cycle it if they need to. So it's running. So this is, if we go back to the original storyboards, it's basically the same thing, but now we just added the camera moving first. We have the camera panning across the background and then the person running and gaining in, okay? And then we cut close, which is fine. When you cut close, make sure to still have the background or still indicate that the background is moving. Otherwise, people won't know the angle you're shooting from, and they won't know if he's actually moving, because right now you can't tell that he's moving. His arms are moving, but you don't know if he's running actually, right? So be careful of that. That is one thing that will separate you out from other board artists, is if you actually draw on your backgrounds. This is something that even professional board artists don't do, and is kind of frustrating, because backgrounds are very important. They help determine placement in the scene. They help to determine camera placement, or like what direction the camera's pointing. Just as an example, let's say the camera is like straight dead on, right? So it's a profile shot. That works. But you can also have it up higher like that. You can have it be like a 3/4 down shot. You can have it be like a 3/4 down shot. Like, it's still, with that pose, you can still make it work for a lot of different perspectives. So having the background will help to make it more specific, and will help to give the animators and the people watching a better idea of what you're trying to indicate with your shot. Because you can, like I said, you can do it this way, you can do it this way, you can have that person, especially in the later shot where he's looking backwards like that, it can be, the camera can like rotate around as well. So You just need to make sure your BG is in there. At the very least, give like a grid line. Like at the very least, a grid line. Minmay says, for BGs, how detailed do they have to be for cleans? At the very least, grid line. At the best, like enough to know what's happening. So I'm going to assume you want something maybe 3/4 ish because you started from a profile shot. So let's go to something a little bit more. We'll raise up the horizon line just a little bit like that. Let's move it this way like that a little bit. So we don't have to, if you have the vanishing point in frame, then it makes it really hard to animate the background. So if you put it just off to the side of the frame, then you can actually still pan the background in terms of animation style, or in terms of animation, if that makes sense to you guys. Minmay says, I've seen boards with just grids, but also some line with proper shading. It's whatever you want, really, because it depends on how much time you have. If you have all the time in the world, then yeah, draw out the backgrounds and shade them if you want. The only time I'll do shading is if I want to indicate light or separate people out from the background. If you don't have time, a grid line like this will be good. It will be good enough. It's not good, but it'll work for the time being. So let's draw on that background a little bit. So and some bushes, and like you can see here, it doesn't take long. You just add some bushes, maybe something like that. And then maybe a different layer for some trees. Right. Some more trees in the background. Whatever's. Right. But you can kind of see now that if we had the background, this is what I was talking about just a couple seconds earlier. If we were to have the background in frame like that, then we would have to draw things scaling out from the vanishing point. And that is really hard to do for backgrounds. So just have the vanishing point a little bit off to the side so that you don't see it, and so that you can actually just pan the background sideways, like at an angle, and you can loop it that way too. That's a very specific animation thing, but it is important to remember. So let's fill this guy in. All right, so this is the guy running, right? Oh my goodness, let's not do that. Oh, let's save it actually. 2019-07-16 to my tip stream. Oh wow, 16th on the 16th episode. How does that work out, guys? Notes. Let's do it to the desktop. All right. So this guy's running. Kind of 3/4. I don't know if you want a 3/4 or profile. I think 3/4 will work better if we go to the POV shot afterwards. So we'll just go with the 3/4 from the back a little bit. So let's make this scene 2, panel 1. Let's make sure we indicate our backgrounds as well, panning. Oh my god. Sorry guys. I am terrible at drawing right now. Kind of coming forward that way a little bit. Woo! Not so good, but there you go. It's coming forward-ish. Because you want to indicate that there's depth. Your arrow needs to have depth if you're going to draw the background moving in depth. Kind of like that. So that's scene 2, panel 1. What does scene 2 pound 2 look like, guys? What do you think it'll look like? Scene 2 pound 2. BG moves left. Yep. Body is higher. That works too. If you guys don't know, Ethan is actually a board artist as well, a really good one. You should follow him on Instagram. And I think he has a YouTube channel as well where he posts a lot of his storyboard work, and it's timed out and it looks great. You guys should check it out. Right, so the guy's running this way. I had to change the pose just a little bit because he's running more Ethan Walker. Ethan Becker. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. But yeah, Ethan Becker is a great storyboard artist. Why did I think it was... What? Check out Ethan Becker. And why not Ethan Walker while you're at it? Get all the Ethans under your belt. The other thing that's nice about doing run cycles from not from profile the whole time is that you don't end up with jump cuts. Because if you look at this shot here and then this, if you look at this shot here and this one, their pose is almost similar, right? So there's almost like a jump cut between him running, the poses for running, which does happen, and it's kind of I understand why that happens, because that's running is a very symmetrical thing, so you kind of have to either add in like a middle pose or just kind of change up their pose slightly. In the 3/4 one, like that, we kind of get around it because running in 3/4 will not have that same symmetry, which also works. So that, and you're right, the background will have to get bigger. Let me see where the background stuff is. So what's going to happen is we're going to scale it up a little bit, come in closer like that. Let's just merge these. Because it's like scaling out like that. Does that make sense? Yeah, Ethan Walker, don't worry. You're getting there. I mean, I have a lot of respect for anyone that is trying to get better at storyboarding, because storyboarding is a lot of drawing, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of skill. So you never see anyone just like storyboard in their free time, right? Like it's not like making a comic or like animating something. Making a comic, you do like 5 or 6 panels, maybe a couple pages, and it's a story and you're done, right? Same thing with animation. You're not seeing someone animate like minutes of animation at a time. Maybe it's like 10 seconds at most, maybe like a half minute at the very extreme, like some cool fighting stuff or some cool acting, but you're not going to see someone do like 10 minutes of animation. Storyboarding is like the in-between of both of them. Like you have to draw a ton, you have to do a lot of it, you have to do hundreds of drawings to even make it worthwhile. And so if you're practicing storyboarding, that's like a lot of work. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of studying, and you can't, there's not a good place to show it off either. Like if you post your storyboards on Twitter, people are gonna be like, why are you blowing up my feed? And there's not even a good way to look at it on Twitter. You can cut it together, but even then, that means you're making a video. It takes time. You have to do that. You put it on Instagram. Also really hard to put your storyboards up on Instagram. So if you're studying storyboards and practicing storyboards, you have a lot of respect, or I have a lot of respect for you. So let's say it cycles between these two poses. Fix the top one a little bit just so it's more 3/4 ish. A pose, B pose, and then so for the third pose, then the person's turning around, right? We'll have them turn around now. Just like you had before. No problem. I mean, I feel the struggle because I did it too for a time, and it's not easy. It's not. And if you talk to anyone that works in storyboards, no one is doing like free time storyboarding. Like it's not something we do during our to de-stress. You know what I mean? Like we just doodle a little bit and that's about it. It's not like we're going to go out and make another 10-minute I'm at it because it's just so much work already. I don't think people understand how much work storyboarding is outside of the industry, so I mean, that's why the burnout rate for storyboards is so high, is because it requires so much work. And it's even more work if you're not getting paid for it and you're having to like figure out all this stuff. And that's partly the reason why I started this. I mean, I kind of wish I had the same type of resources. And there are a lot of resources now outside of my own. Like I think there's a ton of places, and even just Twitter has a lot now, and you have artists on there talking all the time and giving advice. So I mean, it's way better now than it was before, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still hard, that there's still a ton of drawings you have to do every day. Like today I spent pretty much like 8 hours drawing a cape. I'm not gonna say what it was for, but I just had to add in some stuff to someone else's boards, but it was basically 8 hours of drawing like a cape in and like cleaning up some poses. And you think of a cape and it's just like a flapping square, and yeah, it's not that hard. It's just there's so much of it, like close to like 100 something panels. I'm just like, oh man. Okay, I'm noodling this a little too much now. I think it's because I drew the pose too much. The pose too. I think his head is turned too much for the body. Anyways, he turns around like that, right? Ethan Walker says it's kind of encouraging knowing it's hard for everyone. Yes, it's very hard. Talk to any board artist and they're like, I'm tired. It's hard. Caleb Carr was that stamina something you built up over a long time? I think I'm it is something that you build up over a long time, but I think it's also a mental thing. I think storyboards requires a certain type of mentality that will let you keep doing it and doing it well. And I think that mentality it has to come from within, right? I have, just from my own, like, I've thought about this before too. Like, when you're at the studio late at night, like working 10, 12-hour days, and you're asking yourself, why am I doing this? you need to have a good reason. Like, you need to have a reason deep within you somewhere that will allow you to keep doing that. And I found myself at those times, like at 4 o'clock in the morning, being like, why am I doing this? Like, why did I just stay up for like 4 days up until like 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock? Like, go to sleep at like 2 a.m., wake up at 8 a.m., do it again, go to sleep at 2, wake up at 8, and you ask yourself, like, why am I doing this, right? Like, one part is like professionalism to get the work done. One part is you're getting paid for it. But that third part, whatever that is in you, has to keep you going. You need that weird internal fire. And for me, it's because I want to do a good job. And I want to prove that I can do a good job and do it. The other part of me that got me into storyboarding is I like to tell stories. So at night when I'm doing stuff like that where it's really tough and I'm like, God damn it, like I just want to go to sleep, I think about those reasons and then I just keep going. You know, like you have to find something in you that keeps you going through those moments. And the people who don't typically tend to fall out of storyboards because there are a lot of easier things to do other than storyboarding. And yeah, it's a mental thing. It's really a mental thing than anything else. I would suggest, this is my suggestion to everyone who wants to get good at something. Run a marathon, right? Do something that is crazy hard but is easily accomplishable, right? Like a marathon. Okay, we're getting really off topic, so let me finish this up first and then I'll talk about the marathon because this will go on a little bit long. So just to reiterate, we have panel 1, the guy running, we have it 3/4 with the vanishing point off over here, and then panel 2 he's still running, and then panel 3 he turns around, and the background should still be moving in this last panel. And I think your shot choice was correct. Like, I think cutting closer to the guy is totally fine. We've talked about that a lot of times, like going from wide to close. I think that's fine. The only reason why I switched it up was I think it just gives a little bit more interest. And then also, it'll set up the next shot after this where we cut to his POV a little bit better. Because I think if you go flat, 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 because if you did profile shot to profile shot to profile shot, it'll be too flat. So you want to inject some profile to like maybe like a slightly off profile shot or 3/4 shot, and then you can go back to profile shot if you want, or you can go from profile shot to 3/4 to like flat straight on shot, which we're going to do next because the flat straight on shot will be his POV. Also, make sure to indicate that when he's turning around in this shot, they add an arrow. People don't use arrows as much anymore. This is kind of more of an older convention. So if you don't want to use an arrow like that, then just at least have it be like have some type of line to indicate turning, right? Like a lot of times when someone is moving an arm or moving any part of their body, let's say a person standing like this. This is pose 1. Wow, that guy has a really long neck. Pose 1. If he's raising his arm in the next shot, like that, I will usually have a line going up like that to indicate motion. Like that. You don't have to make it into an arrow, but at least have some type of line to indicate that it moved. Otherwise, without it, you don't know how it goes from pose 1 to pose 2. You can see it in the animatic, and you can see it in if you were to flip the storyboards, but this just helps sell it that much better. For really fast action, like let's say we do the same thing again, but this time you want it to be extra fast, what I'll do is the anime thing, right? Like you want to do you have the arm up like that, but then you add a little bit of like a fuzzy line to it. Let's Let's move this up a little bit. Oh. See, add a little bit of like fuzzy blur to it. It's like kind of like a motion blur, and that will indicate that it's moving even faster. Does that make sense? So these are two different ways. Like I said, I always include at least some type of line, or I'll include a motion blur at least a little bit. Either or works, depending on the speed. This is more just normal, bring it up. The second A is more just like I'm bringing my arm up, and then B is like super fast, and it's kind of catching it mid motion, like mid bringing it up. Ridiculous. How's it, David? Just tuned in. Awesome stuff, my voice. What's up, Ridge? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking it easy. I heard you're at Cartoon Network now, so awesome. Okay. So before we get to the next shot, and I'll let you guys think about what that shot will look like, because it's going to be the POV shot of the character. I'm going to talk about the marathon thing that I was talking about just now, because this is something that I think changed my life. And I think, I don't know if I've spoken about this before, but I think the way to do anything, the way that I found that works for me at least, to get better at anything or to do anything, is to create a habit, right? It's not enough to just do it and do it. You need to make it a habit forming thing. And so that ties into a marathon, because I wanted to run a marathon. My dad had run a marathon when he was younger. I think when I was at his age, at 25, no, at 30 something, I think. Whatever. My dad had run a marathon, and I said to myself, I want to run a marathon. If my dad can do it when he was younger, then I should be able to do it, right? And it wasn't. So I started training for it, and I wasn't making any progress, because I would run like maybe once a week, sometimes twice a week, and I gave myself a whole year to train, but I wasn't getting anywhere. And I realized the problem was I wasn't being habitual with my actions, right? Running a marathon is crazy. It's 26.2 miles of running. For most people, that'll be about 4 hours of constant running. The first marathon killed the guy running it. Think about it like that. The first person to ever run the marathon was a person running from the Battle of Marathon to let people know that it was over, and he died after giving the message. So this can kill you, but with proper training, and a lot of people do it now, you don't have to die. So the way I actually got to a point where I could run a marathon is that I needed to be habitual about my running. I had to make it a habit. And so every other morning, I would wake up at a certain hour, I put my shoes on, and go out the door. I realized as soon as I got my shoes on, I was going to run. Even if I hated it, even if it was cold or whatever, if I had my shoes on and took one step out the door, I would never turn around back into my house. That became a habit. And as soon as I was able to do it consistently for like a month, so that's maybe about like 12 times, I found that it gets easier and easier and easier to do. And so at some point, it no longer becomes painful. It just becomes natural. And that is why running a marathon is good, because it teaches you the habits of how to do something over and over and over without feeling that mental stress in your head, without feeling like without it becoming a battle, right? Storyboards is it's very strenuous because it requires so much drawing over a long period of time. It's kind of like running. It's not that hard to do one drawing, but to do hundreds of drawing is tough. It's not that hard to run 1 mile, but it's hard to run tens of miles at a time. Everyone can run. You just put one foot in front of the other, then the other one, then the other one, and it's very simple. But it's the amount that makes it hard. So running a marathon and doing storyboards are very similar because they take a long time, but the process of doing it is very simple. That being said, I am not a doctor. I am not a sports coach of any type. So if you have any physical ailments or anything that I don't know about, I would not recommend. You know what? I would not recommend running a marathon you are if you are have any concerns about your health, because it is strenuous and tiring. The whole point of the story was to illustrate that it's a mental thing. It's not always about the physical. The physical is like 10%, like technical skill is like 10%. The rest of it is like mental, getting up to that, getting like a mental place where you can hammer away at your storyboards and hammer away at getting better. So just something to keep in mind. The other nice thing about running is that if you don't run with music, like I don't run with anything, I just run. It gives me a lot of time to think. It just naturally clears my mind. Like I won't be thinking about anything, and it's just kind of like free time to reflect on whatever, and it just kind of forces you to do that. So think about things that you can form into habits, because that will help you in life, because you can use those same things for, let's say you don't want a story, let's say you want to do something other than storyboarding, right? Like let's say you want to learn how to play guitar. You can use it for that. Just be like, okay, I'm going to pick up the guitar every night at 8 o'clock and I'm going to play for an hour. I don't care what I'm playing. I'm just going to pick it up and strum it. Over time, if you do it enough, you will start to naturally be like, oh, I wonder if I can play this song. So then maybe in the next 4 times you pick it up, you're practicing that one song. After you do that, you're like, oh, if I can play that song, then I can play this song. So it just keeps building on it. As long as you build the habit, everything becomes easier. Learning how to do things habitually makes everything easier. Learning how to eat healthy is like that. Like, eating healthy gets easier the more you do it. It's the first like week or so of like eating healthy that's really tough, because your body still craves all like the super sweet food and the super like fatty foods. But after 1 week, you won't notice it, and then when you actually go back to it, it feels weird. Like I haven't had fast food in, I'd say like a good half year to a year now, just because I don't crave it, and also when I eat it now, it tastes too much to me. Like it's too extra. So stuff to think about. Okay, so you guys had enough of me rambling. You guys had enough time to think about what type of shot would come after that one. And this is where I would choose a POV shot. So we just had the shot of the guy running. He looks back. And so what happens when people look back towards camera is you expect to see in the next shot, you expect to see what they're looking at. So we could already have said werewolf guy in camera running. Right, we can show what's chasing him. You know what? Let's give him a Naruto run just for fun. I don't get to draw that often enough. Naruto run. And another pro tip is anytime you have someone running, you have to make the sound effects like. All right, so he's running towards camera. Like that. The nice thing about having shots where it is directly kind of like center with the background is that you can just scale the background down or scale it up when people are running. What ends up happening is they'll just draw the background like that, and then they'll animate the ground plane with like some movement lines like that to indicate that it's moving. But basically they're just scaling the background while the ground is moving. And again, you want to make sure you indicate that the background is going away from camera with some arrows like that. Where you put BG. So he's running towards camera. You can even write in bypack, which means the character is animating while the background is also moving. So it's like I wonder why it's called pack. I used to know this, but basically You can write bypack. Again, I don't think these are used as much anymore because it's all digital, but you can always indicate that he's running by going up and down or just adding in another pose of him running and be like cycle between shots. What a Guy Ninja says, werewolves. No, that's an anime I want to see. I think they have that, don't they? Ninja werewolves. Is that like Underworld? Maybe. Minmay says, lol, I noticed a lot more shows have Naruto runs. Is it because it's like a homage or just easier to animate? I think it might just be because it's easier to animate. I don't know if it's a homage anymore. I think the reason why they did it first was it was in the comic, but then I also think it's just easier to animate. You don't have to animate their arms. You can have the top be pretty stationary and you just animate legs popping in and out, going forward and backwards. And for the profile, it's really easy at that point because you don't even have to have the body twist. Like running, your body's twisting all the time, right? But if you're just animating running, you're just like you're not even twisting your body, so it makes it even easier. Anime run. All right, so that's what I would do. I would do it like that, and then you can have like some cool thing where it's like he roars towards camera or something. You can even have him come closer to camera to show that he's gaining towards camera, like he's actually catching up to the guy, which gives it that extra heightened scariness because you're in his POV. And then you could also add in the other guys in the background, of course, too, right? Like you can have them jump in. You can have them jump in from the sides or whatever's running too. You can have them all anime run. He can do Kage Bunshin, no werewolf. Run, 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 run. They're all running together. Okay, so that's cool. You can have a truck out too. See that? This shot also is good. Like it cuts to the werewolf's POV, so you can have it truck in on him if you want. You can have it truck in on the guy as he's running. Slides in, cool. You just make sure to write like an in arrow or something. I think this is like a 3/4 shot, which is fine. Just make sure to move him further back. Actually, I think the shot is fine. It's just that his pose doesn't really look like he's sliding into frame. Wait, let's not do that. Yeah, so we'll take the second shot first. We'll take this shot. Scene 3, scene 2, scene 1. So if this is the second panel, what you can do to make it feel like he's actually coming to a stop or coming forward toward camera, because I imagine this is a 3/4 type shot, right? Like this is kind of the grid plane you're going for, I imagine. Maybe even lower. Let's lower it a little bit. Right, something like that. This is why I imagine it's happening. If it's not, let me know. 3/4, right? So, cool. Cool. Border. What I would do is I'd have it start a little bit tighter over here. Let's turn to the proper color. Green. Maybe a little bit better. That's right, so he's running. Maybe he's looking back. Let's have him forward the counter. no, the ninja werewolves are gonna get me. No. So he's running, right? Like he's running like that. Run and run. And then you have the camera truck out with him, truck pan out as he comes to a stop. So the camera, imagine the camera's pulling back with him as he comes to a stop. So it just gives it a little bit more action. And it also avoids that jump cuttiness that we might have between this panel and the previous panel. Like I know what you're going for. You just need to spread it across 2 panels, so it's not just next to each other. So if we wanted to imagine what that would look like, it would be like this, and then like, oh no, whatever. So it started off like that, like him running, and then it would truck out with him coming to a stop like that. And yeah, it gives it a little bit more action, it gives it a little bit more depth, it gives you all that good juicy stuff that you want. And then just to wrap it up real quickly, because we're already talking for an hour, this is cool. You might want to do it from his POV just to give it a little bit more scariness, because you want to have that scariness, right? So one, you want the bad guy to have more power, all that upshot downshot stuff that we always talk about. Arr, I'm a werewolf, a ninja werewolf. Come back here, Red Riding Hood. Oh, you owe me. I want your. Come back here, Red Riding Hood. I want your Girl Scout cookies. Tell them I said hello. And you have to say it exactly like that. You have to be like Mrs. Doubtfire and be like, hello. So, just like the other scene, you want to give it a little bit. We might not want to do double truck out, but at least give it a little bit of a pan up, just to indicate that the idea with the pan up in this shot is to indicate that it's like the person's eyes looking up at this werewolf, right? That's the idea with the pan up. And you can still have the guy in frame if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. And just have him to the side a little bit, like this. Right? Give me your cookies. Like I said, make sure to draw on your backgrounds, or at least a grid line of some sort. So like that. Add in some trees. Help frame his face a little bit, like that. Does this all make sense to you guys? Am I going too quickly, or is there anything you want me to explain a little bit more? Let's move this actually. Let's move this werewolf a little bit. I feel like he's a little too center, like that. Cool. Cool. I want your cookies. So this is scene 5, I think, actually, and this is scene 6. Star Chaser, how do you develop the ability to know which grid lines to put in place for perspective framing a shot a certain way? So there are a couple different ways to think about that. And the way I usually, the grid line should always describe the background or describe the camera placement. So what I mean by that is, if we look at this shot with him running, right now the grid lines are describing the depth of the background, right? So we're describing the trees so that they recede into the distance like that. So if I were to draw a tree, it's to use to describe the tree going into depth. And I use it to help me draw the trees going into depth like that, right? Versus something like this, where it might be a flat shot. What I would do is then I would, if I wanted to draw a grid line like this, I'd probably just draw it where I imagine the camera would be in relation to the background. Because it's a flat shot, you can't really, if I were to draw like the lines to describe the background in terms of like its perspective, then it would just kind of be like straight lines, right? Because it's flat to the camera. You could have it like that and then have stuff recede into the distance as well. Like this, you could have trees getting smaller this way, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in this instance, because it's more of a flat shot, I use the grid more to describe the placement of the camera. Like if it was higher up like this, it would mean that the camera's above the bushes. But then like this, it's maybe a little bit lower into the bushes. People use grid lines differently, but this is how I tend to use them. I either use it to describe the background or to describe the camera placement. Because sometimes the camera placement is important. Sometimes the background is what is important. It's whatever helps you sell the shot. And allow, it gives it, you want it to have like that 3D-ness to it, or the depth, so that you can see how the characters are standing in the background or how they fit into the background. You want to use it to describe something. Don't just put them down arbitrarily. They should describe something. A lot of times I'll see people just, like if they just have like a 3/4 down shot, what I see a lot of people doing is they'll draw a character like this, right? They'll be like, here's someone looking up at a werewolf, right? And they'll just go like this. They'll just do like lines like that. And that's not right, because if you're to actually draw out these lines like this and like find the vanishing point, that person is not drawn properly to their placement on the background, like on the ground plane. You want to make sure that when you draw your ground plane, whatever you want it to look like, make sure the characters actually match that ground plane. Don't just draw perspective lines without having the characters. So you can use these perspective lines, especially on three-quarter shots, to help you place the characters in there, right? Because like their shoulders, if they're a box, their shoulders will also go to that horizon line, and your feet will go to that horizon line. They'll point there, so that it helps you to figure out how to draw your character in perspective. And that's kind of how I use perspective lines a lot of times, is just to help me really indicate the person in space. Because you can do that, or you can do something like this, right? You can have it be a little bit flatter. What's up, swearwolves? We're actually talking about your peoples tonight. And by peoples, I mean werewolves. Check this out. Werewolf. Check out this guy. Werewolf. So in the other one we had the guy standing like that, right? In this one you can use the same perspective lines to help you draw the person in perspective. You use the perspective lines to help you figure out your character, and this kind of goes back to figure invention that we are talking about, knowing those landmarks on your character, yada yada yada, whatever. Go check out episode like 11 or 10 or something where I talk about figure drawing a little bit more. So with him popping up like that, we want to have the pan to indicate like his POV. Even though he's in the shot, we still kind of get the best of both worlds by having a pan up, because one, it gives scale, and then two, it kind of gives like the idea of him looking up. And then from there, that's cool. You might not want to have the person throw in the rock and then attack like that. A way that people tend to do it, or what I like to tend to do, is have a shadow come over the person. I will also maybe try, instead of a profile shot, maybe a 3/4 down shot from the back to get the person's reaction first. Anyways, that's... So this is scene 6, scene 7. So if you wanted to keep in the shot, which is fine, what I would do is, instead of throwing a rock, just add in like a slight shadow layer, right? Like the idea that someone's above him and it's coming down on him. So it starts to shadow over him so that in the next scene, he turns around. Like the shadow makes him turn around to look up at like, what's happening? Why is there a shadow above me? Because that's weird. I just want my cookies. And they add in that line that I was talking about before. That's what I'm talking about. All these lessons coming back, right? So then now the shadow's over him like that, and then you can go to your shot of that person getting hit in the face. So you can skip out the double beat of him getting hit by something. You just add the shadow and then take out the rock, and boom, gets hit in the face by the stick, which is fine. And then he comes up. Yeah, I think the issue with all these profile shots is that they're too flat. You want to add in some shots where it's like 3/4 a little bit. You want to add in some POV shots where we're getting the person's point of view. You want to add in just some variety is my overall note. You might even want to add in a shot of the werewolf knocked out between these shots, just so that we're not wondering what happened to him. You just need like one shot of him on the ground or something. Wait, let's do it this way. So this time I'm indicating the perspective lines in this are indicating the ground plane to show, hold on, are used to show how that person is lying on the ground. Alright, so that's the ground plane. And the werewolf is like, ugh. Maybe not dead, I don't know. Maybe has a big boo-boo. See, but you can use the ground plane to indicate the clavicle, right? You can use that ground plane to kind of help indicate the body, like that. If you had to draw out the ribcage, it would be something like that, right? That's how ground plane and perspective lines work. You use it to help draw your character so that it looks like he's on the ground. Because his face is like a cube too, if you think about it. If it was like directly on the ground, it's like that. It's like... It might be on top of his arm though. You know what? Let's just move the arm to the other side so we don't have to draw it overlapping like that. And then this arm's like that. Does that make sense, guys? You can use your perspective lines. And that's the reason why we added in this shot, is just to make sure that, just to let the audience know that this guy is passed out and that he's not going to pop up in the next shot. Because it would feel weird if they're just talking and hanging out and then then we're like, oh, what happened to the werewolf? Because we never see what happens to him after this. So we just kind of want to make sure we follow that guy a little bit. But otherwise, I think you're off to a good start with the things you have. I think you have, again, like, I think you have all the beats there. It's just kind of getting, it's kind of like massaging the shots a little bit. I think in your mind, you know what you want, which is good. You should know what shots you want and you know the flow of things. It's just kind of like then translating that into a more cinematic type way. Because I can see what you're going for. Like, I know the effect that you want, and it's just kind of massaging your shot choices a little bit more. Not shot choices, like your compositions a little bit more to get to what you want to tell. Again, like, all the beats are there. Like the close-ups, the wide shots, like, I think you know what you want. It's just, like I said, composition stuff and just changing up your variety a little bit. You can upload it, not a problem. We're going to jump into What a Duck. Is that? Let me close out this. We're going to jump. Ducks Go Down, not What a Duck. Put this all into Aiden-esque. And then we'll do a different one for the duck. So I haven't seen this at all. I don't know what it's about. Again, we'll just go through it really quickly and then we'll talk about it. So we start off with a guy walking, or I take it back. We start off with a lady walking to a pond. There's some ducks here. I like the usage of foreground elements and middle ground and background. Cut close. She pulls out some bread, throws it, falls in. Ducks come over. Nom, 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 nom. Quack, 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 quack. Come over. Rummage, rummage. Quack, 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 quack. Cut to a reverse. Then we go to another duck. Oh, hook pops up with bread. And eats it. Oh, it gets pulled down. Bloop, 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 bloop. Goes away. Bloop, pops up. Gets eaten. Goes down. This is pretty funny already. Disappear. Yeah. I'm getting it. Oh, this is funny. Pops up. Cut close. Dun. She stops it. No, don't eat it. Ooh, good shot. I like that. Goes down. Puts it on there. Throws it up. Cuts to the POV of the duck. Goes over. Quack, 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 quack. About to eat it. Gets eaten. She grabs it. Saves it. Falls in. And then I imagine there's still more to this, but I like it. I like what I see. I think it's smart. It's really funny. I think it works. There are a couple of shots where I'm a little bit worried, like this one to this one. Instead of cutting to a new shot, I would suggest maybe pan trucking in instead. You can have the same effect, but you just pan truck in. This is really funny. I like that. All right. I think you have all the beats there. This is good. This is funny. A lot of the shots are working. I think your shot choice is smart. Let's do some finessing. So I think the thing's working up until this point. I think everything up until this point is working. I would suggest maybe fixing the composition a little bit, adding some foreground elements, maybe give it a little bit more depth, adding some things here and here, maybe some clouds, just to fill out these open areas up here and down here. I imagine this is more of a comedy board, so I'm not going to harp on the anatomy at all. And in terms of perspective, I don't think perspective is indicated a whole lot in comedy. For some things, yes, but I think in comedy they kind of get away with just doing flat things, and you don't have to have perfect perspective or anatomy for that. So I'm not going to talk about those things. So for this shot, I think it works. What I would suggest though, instead of cutting to the reverse shot, which is kind of a hard jump, and you can sometimes have jump cuts with that too, which is dangerous. I would suggest, so this is a start frame. Let's draw out this background a little bit more like that. Over a tree. What's going to happen is we're going to pan truck in a little bit, right? So the thing about this shot to this shot is that we're expecting the audience to kind of make the leap in their head that this is the same person from this shot to this shot, but you're jumping kind of like a weird 180 line because we haven't seen the back of her before, and we don't really know what's on the other side. If you drew in the ducks, it might be a little bit easier, but I think there's an easier way to do this, and this is what this is. So instead of jumping to the other side, we're basically pan trucking in, and you kind of already do that in the shot because you do jump over and then you pan, right? But I think what you can do is just do the pan truck over like that. Have the duck just be over here like how you had it before. It can be smaller, that's fine. You don't have the thing bob in yet. Have it just be a small duck over here. Boop, boop, maybe even smaller, right? So that's the duck. Pan truck in. You might need to add in some more background elements because it's looking a little bit sparse. Some stuff. Give it some love. You can even add in another duck over here. You can have another duck coming forward, going this way if you want. Coming toward her. That's fine. You can have a couple ducks just to give it some depth if you want. But this one, this duck, this is the duck that is going to get killed. So we end the shot with that one, and basically we're going to have the same thing. So we just cut close on it after the pan truck in, right? So we pan truck in and then we just cut close to this, and then the thing pops up, and that's totally fine. That's super funny. That's super cool. This shot is fine again because we're still on the front side of the grandma, so we know who it is, we know where it's coming from. And then, yeah, I like how she leaves frame too. That's really funny. I think that's good. Boop, eats it, goes down. And then basically we cut to a, I like this because it's kind of like a POV shot of her, and then we cut to a reaction. Oh, it goes down. Then we cut to a reaction. My only suggestion would be put her in the center here. Hey, Art March Animation. I'm glad you can make it too. I feel like YouTube is a lot better for people to get to. Twitch is a little bit hard, and I don't think it's as interactive. But I do think Twitch allows me to show some things because I'm a little bit afraid of the copyright stuff with YouTube because they're very strict about it. I think I got away with some crazy stuff on Twitch. But maybe we'll try YouTube going forward, because it does seem like YouTube is better for informational and educational things as well. So in this shot, I wouldn't have her so far off to the left. You drew, or so far off to the right. You drew her already to the right. I would have her start in the center. And I'd also have her have a start pose. So this is the scared pose is probably the second pose, right? You want to have another pose of her before that where she's just watching. She's like, her glasses make her seem already kind of like surprised, but she should kind of just be watching. So this is pose 1, and then she goes, ooh, pose 2, right? And you can have her more forward at this point if you want, but start her off in the center. And then for pose 2, wait, let's do this a couple ways. So this is pose 1, have her there like that. And then for pose 2, you can have like her lean forward if you want. And that's fine. I think it's fine if she leans forward. And like we said, add in that line of her moving just to indicate some motion. And you're good. You're good. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everyone? Why did that? Okay. And then, like you have in the other one, when she turns back for pose 3, that works perfectly too. So she comes over and then she looks back that way. Hey, look, you drew on the arrow. Yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. She looks back. Oh, just make sure you draw in another line here where she turns back that way. I like this shot that you go wide where they're all disappearing. That's a good shot choice because we had a lot of close-up shots up until this point, right? We had OTS and then like a close-up POV shot, close-up, and then we go wide. So it gives you that variety that I was talking about, which is nice. And then you can kind of get away with all these ducks disappearing. Boop, 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 boop. Boop. And you also have multiple shots of them disappearing, but in different ways. So I like that. Storyboards asks, is drawing in arrows a good thing? I was talking about that earlier, how you just need to indicate some type of movement. You can do it like this, where you have just a line, because a lot of times now people don't use arrows. But if you use an arrow like Duck does here, that's also fine. It's just good to indicate the motion somehow, either just a line or an arrow. An arrow is more clear, but I feel like a lot of people don't use that anymore because we do things in animatics, and so they don't necessarily need it anymore. Disappears. Again, the same thing about this is just watch out for your composition. You might need to add in some stuff up here because there's a lot of open space. This is good too. You might need to widen it out a little just because she's getting chopped off at the top now. So I think this is a good shot. I like it a lot. You get some nice layers to it. You get those thick layers that we were always talking about, like a lasagna. You want to get that thickness with two, you know what? 4 C's. Thick, and then it turns into a duck. You want those layers, man. You want those layers. And I like that. You give it some depth, right? So you just want to make sure that you're not chopping off your character because her glasses are getting chopped off already, and that's too much. You don't want it to get chopped off. Yeah. You're new here at Art March, but everything I talk about is in terms of food. All my analogies are food analogies. We've talked about caramel and cheddar popcorn. We talk about lasagna. We talk about biscotti and how you should be making biscotti. Also, make sure your character is looking at the duck, because right now she's kind of looking off to the side. Her eyes are looking this way, but she should really be looking at that duck. So just make sure those eyes are facing right there. Oops. But this is a good shot. I like it a lot. A lot. I think this story is very funny. I think there's some nice beats to it. I'm very curious about the ending to see where that ends up. But you want to just make sure you have enough room for everything. Right? Just a little bit. You can even layer it a little bit more if you want. So right now the buoy is next to, or the floater is right next to the duck, but if you want to give it a little bit more depth, just put it just slightly in front of the duck, just slightly, so it layers the duck just a little bit. This will force you to change the duck drawing so that it's more towards camera, but it'll give you a little bit more layers. And like I said, you want those thick layers. Thick. But yeah, give you that nice thick layers. Let's just shade in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Cool. I'm glad that you're finding them life-changing. Let's move her over just a little bit, because we want to do that rule of 3 thing that we're talking about, the 1/3, 2/3. It felt a little bit too much in the center, so I wanted to just bring her over to the side a little bit. Boop, boop. So even the duck could move over a little bit, but that, you get the idea. Right now it's the framing, just widen out a little bit and it'll be good. You don't have to do these other things I was talking about, but at least widen it out. Alright, eats it, goes down. That's really funny. Like I said, I like this shot a lot because you get a lot of variety in how the ducks are getting eaten. Bloop. Bloop. I like this shot a lot. I like this close-up on it. It's really funny. You might even want to add in a blink just so that we know it has a little bit more time. Or it just takes a little bit more time. Right? I think people have asked about this before, like, how do you know how long this panel is going to last? And one way to do that is just adding in more panels. So this could be panel 1. If you want it to like last a lot longer, then you would just add in like a panel 2, 3, 4, and 5. So panel 2 would be basically the same thing, right? It's basically the same thing, but then a blink. Bloop. Sometimes I'll even write in blink if it's hard to tell. So this would be panel 1, and then this would be panel 2. And then you could add in another panel at the end of it. And this would be panel 3. So by adding in extra panels, now it reads that it's going to take longer for the action to happen. So instead of just being panel 1 only, now it's like panel 1, blink, panel 3. So there's a little bit more time. You can even like extend the blink if it's like really slow, or if it's like multiple blinks, like blink, blink. Just to give it a little bit more time. And then even the buoy, you can add in a little bit of time on the buoy if you want. Again, this is all, I'm just kind of guessing how long you want to time it out. But if you want to add in a little bit more time into the scene, you just add in more panels. Whoa, I'm really touched, swearwolves. Swearwolves. I'm glad that you enjoy the stream too. So what I would do for this is, let's do that. You just want to give it a little bit of a bob to it. So maybe it goes up a little bit more. These lines that I'm drawing on the side of it like that indicate kind of like motion. You can use these like quotation type marks for like when things just move slightly. It's just to indicate a little bit of like movement without necessarily describing the whole movement exactly. You can use it for people who are like heaving. If someone's like breathing heavily, not only do you just draw them like their shoulders up like that, but you add in a little bit of those lines too to indicate that their shoulders are going up. It's kind of like the same thing how I talked about having a line for someone who raises their hand. These quotation mark type things, you just put them where people are like moving or jittering just a little bit. Yeah, if it's like a beckoning bob, you might even want to have the floater move so it's like, come here, like it kind of like goes back and forth a little bit like that with the hook. Like if you really want to sell the idea of it, like kind of like telling it to come. Yeah, that symbolism's good. So yeah, like the duck stuff would all be the scene before, and then the hook stuff would all be the scene afterwards. And you just, if you want to just give it a little bit more time, just add a couple more panels of it just like kind of like slowly bobbing. And then we cut closer, which is even funnier. And then again, you can have maybe like a blink here if you want to really play it out, like, or just hold on it for a long time. What you want to do for this though is, so you're having a issue between this shot and the previous shot. In this shot, its mouth is closed, but in this shot, its mouth is open, and this is kind of, the action isn't hooking up, right? You want to make sure the action hooks up, and by that I mean have the mouth start off closed. So if you have the mouth closed here, it should start off closed and then open. That's just to make sure that it is very clear to the people overseas that the mouth should be closed. And you want to make sure this happens for everything. Like if some character is doing something in the previous panel and you cut to that character wider, they should be doing the same action, or they should be in the same position as before. So its mouth should be closed and then go to the open mouth. Comes over, that's fine. Put the arrow on the second panel, not the first panel. This pose is fine, and then just put the arrow in back of her as she leans forward. That's fine. Catches it. I like this shot a lot. I like it a lot. I think it's really smart. Very cool. Goes down. Yeah, that's fine. You might want to widen it out a little bit just because I feel like the pier is getting a little bit close to the bottom of the screen here. So just either move it all down a little bit, or let me just show you. It just feels like it's a little bit too close to the bottom of the screen. The pier is a little bit too close to the bottom of the screen, so we want to just move it a little bit. So instead of this framing, just move it slightly down so that it's not so close to the bottom. Because before it was too close here. Like this feels a little bit too close and it feels like it's pinching. So you just want to give it a little bit more space, a little bit more breathing room. You know, give it a little bit of that. Give it a little bit of air. You can see, right? So that feels a little bit more comfortable, right, guys? Right? No. Just a little bit more comfortable. This is not a pan, just frame it down so there's a little bit more room. I like this shot a lot. Pops up. That's really funny. She's surprised by it. I like the cut to the POV. Duck goes, no, eats it. Eats it, ooh, gets pulled. Have it get pulled off screen completely first, and then have her pull it back in frame, because I think that would give it a little bit more tension. So let us break that down. Break it down. So this is panel 1, which is cool. I like that. Let's move that up to the top. Panel 1. See, and this is where that blurry line stuff that I was talking about coming in, the anime-ness of it, where you kind of like give it that a little bit of scritchiness, scritch. And you want to add in the line, so he's getting pulled off, but you only add it to the side that's going away from. So it goes off. Duplicate layer. Oh, wrong layer. And usually what you do is you put an arrow going out like that, go OS, which means off screen. You draw the tail end of the bird just to show that it went off screen, right? And then this panel, you have her hands coming in. All right, I'm going to draw hands. I was like, you know, how do I draw a hand? How do I draw a hand? And I was like, I'm going to tell myself I'm going to draw a hand, and then I'm going to draw it. And then it worked somehow. I told my hand how to draw a hand, and my hand listened. Draw the other hand. Okay, hand. Good job. Good job. Hello, my pet slime cat. So what you want to do with that, so the hands come in, right? If you want to get really meticulous about your boarding, you will add in another panel where there's no hands and nothing. And then you add in this, and you go in. You put the arrow there, and you go in, right? So that hands come in like that. Thanks, man. Or thanks, cat. I feel like this might be the way to go in the future. Maybe doing YouTube stuff. Because it feels like people are finding it easier. So the hands go off screen like that. Alright, this is getting a little confusing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Is this making sense to you guys? 5, 6. And then that one, 7. Because you want to give it a little bit of visual attention. You want to give it a little bit of action and movement. If you keep the bird in frame the whole time, it doesn't feel like there's any tension of the bird getting pulled away. Having it get pulled off screen and then pulled back in screen gives you that visual attention that you're looking for, those ups and downs in the story that give you, that create excitement in your audience. Oh. And then you put in, so it pulls it back in. Swearwolf says, I catch your YouTube streams more because it notifies my phone, unlike Twitch for some reason, but I don't mind either, to be honest. Oh, good to know. Good to know. Does this make sense to you? Ducks go down. MK12D. Oh, good to know. I didn't know you could save your stream. Well, I like to edit my streams usually just because there's a lot of blank spaces, like now, where I'm just like not really talking about anything. But does this make sense to everyone? Why you have it go off screen and then you have like things come back on, and how this plays out a little bit better? Oh, okay. What a guy says, that's not my username. That's just the way I name files. But hopefully this is all making sense. Oh, 12th version. Oh, 12th version. Wow. This is you did a lot of revision on this. And then this shot is fine. Again, you might want to give it a little bit more space because their hair is getting chopped off at the top. Just a little bit. Pulls it back. That's fine. That's funny. Breaks. Again, you want to have a start pose here. Because even though it breaks in the previous shot, although you did have a start pose. Hey, man, I was wrong, and you did the right thing. Damn, you were on it. You were on it. That's cool. Hey, that's good. That is good. Yeah, man, good job. Again, there are a lot of things I like about this. I like your shot choices. I like the flow of it. I think the story's really funny. I think there's something here. Other than the small notes I had, I think it's working pretty well. What do you plan on doing with this? Are you planning on making it into an animation? Is this your student film? Or is this a film? Are you trying to tell people about your dastardly plan for how to catch ducklings? Cool. That is cool. Duck. Okay, yeah, I think that's a good student film because there's a lot of things. One, it's not super complicated in terms of like animation, which is always a smart thing. Like, you don't want to kill yourself having to animate things. Two, it has a good story. It's funny. There's a saying in animation called "funny is money," and that means if something's funny, it usually sells really well because people like to laugh. Serious things don't always sell so well, but people will always pay for funny things. I think that's why it helps to know how to be funny, just because it'll help you do things. I think the ducks are a very simple design, so you can animate those really well, or really easily, and not have to worry about that too much. I think this whole bobbing up thing is really nice too. I think there's a lot there. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you continue with this, and I hope your student film goes well, and we can all see it someday. My pet slime cat asks, what kind of art do you like to do? Are you talking to me or the what a guy? Star Chaser says, I think we went to the same school. I remember this in our film festival. Yeah, what a small world. Everyone's like meeting up in the chat. Kevin and Ansberry and Min Maze and Daniel the last time. Like, oh my god, everyone knows everyone. which isn't too surprising because animation is a really small industry. Everyone knows everyone in animation, so that is something to keep in mind too. So I'm going to pull down Swearwolves boards, gmail.com. We'll probably do this again next week because I have started working again, so I don't really have time to prepare lessons. Like, I don't have time to like look at films and then study them and then come up with a theory and then find more films. So going forward, I'll probably just do more storyboard reviews. So as always, just send me your storyboards and, you know, basically I'll do what we did tonight where I kind of go over them really quickly. I'll do some draw overs, tell you my thoughts, and we'll talk about food. Output.pdf. Oh no. I hope this isn't virus. Swearwolf storyboard. Oops, sorry. Take it to the desktop. Alright. Jess. Or 4 S's. Yeah, it's crazy that you guys are in the same area. It's pretty nuts. It's crazy that Ansberry and Daniel kind of go to the same gym too for gymnastics. All right, so I don't know anything about this. Let's get into. Whoa, 261 pages. This is gonna be crazy. Bird flies in. Ooh, I like the motion blur. Whoa, is this Tecton Concrete Part 2? Oh my goodness. Oh, boat comes in. Oh, looking through his periscope. Is that telescope? Monoscope? Is it a monoscope? Mono telescope? Oh, I like that. You did the moving grid lines. Nice. A mermaid comes up. Ahoy! There is a mermaid. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Caleb Carr says he watched Tecton Concrete. It was a very trippy movie, but he liked it. Or it's a weird movie, but yeah, I'm glad that you liked it. Okay. Oops, I got a little distracted. So he saw the mermaid. I would suggest having some type of reaction from him after he sees the mermaid. Well, we'll go through it all first. Let me take a step back. Sees the mermaid. Captain! Ahead! Lightning! He pulls out his locket. My wife! Closes it. I'll avenge you. Captain, it's okay to express your feelings. You know, we're all here for you. Oh. I love you guys. I love you too, Captain. And my mustache. I love you too. But not your mustache. I'm going. Hey guys, let's all cheer for the captain. Whoa, Captain. Boat goes by. Whoa. Hold steady, men. Cut to the underwater. We see the mermaid swimming on. Goes up on the ropes. A little jump. Oh, his boat got shocked. Falls in the water. My locket. Oh, I like that. I like the rack focus. Oh, look at that. Very classy. Passes out. Mermaid comes in, grabs him, pulls him up, pulls him over. Did I miss something? Pan over. He's like, "Thank you, my mermaid." Oh, I'm gonna kill you. Oh, mermaid. I want sushi. No. Stop. Blinks. Stops. Drops a dagger. Sees that. Looks like his wife. No. I love you. I love. Oh wow! Look at that. I like that crossfade. I don't know you, weird man, but thank you for not killing me. And his friends come. Captain, I love you. I don't care if you don't like my mustache. I love you. She's like, I'll see you underwater someday. Gives him the locket, and then she goes away. Light on. Captain, I see you. Check out my mustache. It's still here. Oh, thank God, your mustache. They go away. The clouds cover up. And the end. Cool. Cool. I think there's a lot of good things in here already. Like shot wise, I think it's working well. I like the motion blur stuff they got going on. I like the shot choice. I like the cool usage of camera movements and the introduction of characters. That's really cool. I would be careful with this shot, right? Like, I like the way the boat comes up, like this. I think instead of going past him, you should just stop maybe like here, because in the shot afterwards, we're at his front. So it's weird to go from his back to his front, because we were at his front. So we're at his front here, and then we go to his side, and then we're back to his front. So it feels like the camera moved around and then came back forward. So I would say just cut out this shot and then go to the next shot, this shot here, right? And I think you might want to frame this slightly better. I think there's a lot of empty space here, and you could probably frame it slightly better. Like, I think the shot is right. The shot is right. It's just the composition is a little bit off. My pet slime cat says, I wish I was better at animation. You know, it takes a long time. It's just a lot of drawing, a lot of practice. Swirl says, I want sushi off my we love you, Captain. That's a winning dialogue track, mustache. Alright, so sure. Just if you want to have the your drawings are also really lively. I like it. And you know how to draw a mustache really well. Mustache. That's a little too big. Which hand is which? Right, so just move him slightly over like that, so you can have this a little bit closer. Right, you want to... I know what you're going for. It's like you want it to have a little bit more foreshortening, just to give it, to fill up that space for one, and then two, to kind of like give it a little bit more depth, because you want those thick layers. You want that thickness. Give us that lasagna. You can have the finger like you had before. Turn this down a little bit. Oops, too high. Oops. Oh, that might be a little bit too much for shortening. See, in this case, the perspective lines are to indicate it's more of an upshot, even though he's looking down. But this, like that. Because we want it to be a 3/4 upshot, right? I think that's what the idea is. Maybe, or maybe it's just a straight on shot. I might be wrong. It might be a straight on shot. I take it back. Maybe it's more like something like that. Something a little bit more like that instead. Draw hands, hand. Stop not drawing hands. Alright. There. Because you want to fill up the frame a little bit more. I think right now there's too much empty space in this area. There's too much empty space like in this area, and then I think if you move the mast over a little bit, it would be fine, but this area has a little bit too much empty space. So if you want to do a simple fix, just make it a little bit bigger like that, and then bring his hand a little bit closer, basically is what I did. And that would fix a lot of your issues. You could even just move the framing over slightly, so that it's like that. If you wanted to get really fancy with it, like really, really fancy, what I would suggest doing is then, so you have that shot before of him on the boat, this one right here, like that. Wait, let's go back actually. Let me see what comes to camera. You can start closer on him. Like that. And then truck out. Would that be too much? It might feel a little weird. I take it back. Don't do that. Don't do that because it's like trucking in and then trucking out. Just trucking in and then trucking out. So it'd feel weird. So just go with this. You could rack focus though if you wanted to. You could have this guy in focus and then rack focus to the front of the lens here. But yeah, just fill up that space a little bit more. And you might just need to do a little bit of foreshortening is what I'm talking about. You can keep the mask there, which I think is fine. It helps to frame him really nicely. The nice thing about pirate ships or ships in general is that you can have ropes everywhere. You can have those cargo ropes that they always have. You got the planks on the side. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's going on ships like that. So you can help use it to frame things. You can have ropes hanging down. Whatever. That's a little bit too much now, but you get the idea. Yeah, lots of ropes. Like I said, watch Master and Commander. They have a ton of good ship stuff everywhere. All right. I talked about that shot too much. That's fine. I think this is cool. I like his POV. If you don't want to do grid lines instead, oops. There's another way to do that without drawing grid lines, so it looks a little bit more natural. I'm going to give you guys a secret. It's like my little secret. Don't tell anyone, because if you do, I'll know it was you. I know it was all 18 of you guys giving away my secrets. But let's say you want to do a shot where you're panning across like a plane like that. It could be the ocean, it can be grass, it can be any type of ground plane where you don't really want to, where you want to animate, but you don't want to use grids. What I'll do is I'll lay out the grid, right? Like you lay out your grid like that, but instead of drawing in a grid, what you do is you use those lines that indicate motion, right? Like that. So it's basically the same thing, but then you animate the lines. So that's like panel 1. And then, so this, you can see that the blue lines are on this line and this line, right? So on the second panel, instead of it being on, well, it's on this line and this line, right? So on the second panel, you alternate it. So it goes to this line. Yeah. And then you bring it closer to camera too, like that. Down here. Yeah, a little bit over there. See, so now it looks like you don't have to, you can like lower the opacity level of the lines, of the grid lines, but it gives you that indication that the ground is moving without it being so mechanical. So let's, and you can use that for ground, you can use that for grass, you can use it for sky if you want. It works for a lot of things, right? So basically that. But then you can use it, you can, because it's water, you can actually use like some other shapes too, because water is pretty glassy, right? Like, I kind of hate Photoshop for boarding, to be honest, but whatever. Because like if you look at, there's like a lot of highlights on Photoshop, there's a lot of highlights on water, so you can use other shapes too, right? You can use, and then you can indicate like waves and stuff, like woo, waves. But ultimately the idea is that you want to use things that look a little bit more, yeah, Oshi foaming crap, as Swearwolf says. You just want to make it look a little bit more natural. And then you add in some lines like that. And now it kind of looks a little bit more oceany. You might need to add in at least a horizon line maybe, but, or just like lower the opacity of the grid lines. But the idea is you want to use something that looks a little bit more natural, so it's not just like a ground plane. And let's take, right. All right, so tell me how this looks. Oops. Oops. That to that. There. So it kind of animates a little bit. And that's my secret tip for the day. If you tell anyone, I'll find you and I'll ask you where you learned it from. If you tell me, you know, the first rule about Storyboard Club is you do not talk about Storyboard Club. And the second rule about Storyboard Club is you do not draw Storyboard Club. But this is cool. The mermaid, I like that shadow. Cool. You might want to have one frame of her where she's not blurry, because it happens really quickly, and I'm not sure if that's your intention, because it goes from this to this, right? Like, that happens really fast, so you might want to have one frame where she's out of the water and where she's clear. You don't have to make her face clear. You can hide it with her hair or water, but at least have her silhouette be clear so that we know it's a mermaid for sure. Oops. Mermaid. Because right now it's kind of tired doom. Oh, she got a little bit big in my drawing. But you just want to have one frame where she's very clear that it's a mermaid. And like I said, you don't have to show her face, because I know that's the reveal at the end. But you do need to at least like kind of make it clear earlier on. And then like I said, I talked about this on a different stream, but like when you draw something above a plane but it's not touching it, just add in a little bit of cast shadow. That's my other secret, guys. Just don't tell anyone. Like I said, this is the first rule of Storyboard Club, is you do not tell people my secrets about Storyboard Club. Now, I think everyone knows about this. So you're drawing a little cast shadow like that to indicate that it's above it, right? The cast shadow makes it, without the cast shadow, you can't tell how close it is to the ground or how far away it is from the ground. It helps you put things into space, and that immediately helps with that. By having a cast shadow there, it helps give you that depth, or that height, gives you some depth. It does a lot, and you can use cast shadows for a lot of things. Like, it doesn't have to, be necessarily just for ground play, and you can use it when it comes over other things, like we did earlier with the werewolves, like when we did with the duck and stuff. So the if you're ever wondering like should I put that in there, if it helps to describe the object or the shot better, then do it. If it makes it more 3D like or more gives it more depth or layers, then do it. There are not a whole lot of rules as long as it looks good. Art Art March Animation says, I only recently started using cast shadows in my pencil test. I'm so ashamed. Well, hey, it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, sometimes cast shadows make things more confusing, but it's great. It's great that you're using them. Swearwolf says, I honestly don't think I've ever bothered with cast shadows. Oh my god, how have I not now that I think about it? It's fine. No biggie. I mean, it's an easy thing to do, so it's not like a big deal. And I feel like you kind of had the idea with a shadow already in the water, so it's a depth shadow. And oh yeah, so this is what I was talking about. I think he needs to have a reaction here because his face is so stoic the whole time. We don't know how to feel. Most people, when they would see something amazing like that, they'd be like, "What? It's a mermaid?" But this guy, if it's something normal to him, that makes it interesting. But we need to see some type of reaction, even if it's just like, ugh. Like there needs to be some change of emotion just so we know how to feel. Minmay says, how do you find the balance of adding too much to a shot or adding too little? I just do it, and if it looks bad, then I'll pull it back. If it doesn't look good enough, then I'll do it more. Usually I'll just draw most of the shots all the way, and then if I feel like when I play through it's not reading, then I'll add in more details after I finish. That way I don't over detail things at the start, and I can kind of gauge my time a little bit better. So just add in whatever his reaction might be. If he's looking up, make sure he looks up at the person if she's in the crow nest, because right now he's looking to the side. And you might even want to consider changing the perspective a little bit for the next shot. So this shot, because I imagine this thing in back of him is the main mast, you want to make sure he's looking up at the crow's nest. He has crow's feet. She's on the crow's nest. A lot of crow things going on. He plays volleyball, so he's probably Karasuno, if you know what I'm talking about. The crows. Haikyuu. Good call. Good. You got the reference. So make sure he's just looking up at it. Maybe he needs to even look up even more. So have him look up in that shot. And then for the next shot, have it from his perspective, just to give it a little bit more interest. They use the ship nets as volleyball nets. That would be so funny. So like the whole time they're like shooting volleyballs out of the cannons and they're like spiking the ball back and forth, and that's how they determine who wins the sea battle. Oh man, I would love that. There's a joke there. There's an anime there, like Haikyuu, One Piece. Oh man, yes. Someone make that. Someone please make that show. So if it's like him looking up, you might need it a little bit more. So yeah, something a little bit. This might not be even the right perspective. I think this needs to be a little bit flat, a little bit flatter. Like that. This too needs to be a little bit flatter. I don't think I. Make sure you draw out your perspective properly, but I think you get the idea. You want it to be a little bit more of an upshot. You know what? I'm going to do that again. So I should have laid out my 3rd point perspective. So lay out your points of perspective like that. So this is kind of like the 3-point perspective. Something like that. So you lay it out. You can use it to indicate your mass already, right? Yeah, it's a lot flatter than before, than how I drew it. That person had to like look down and point. He's like, Captain, your mustache looks fabulous from up here. Captain. That's like the net. Maybe a rope or something on this side. And then maybe we'll even see the flag a little bit. The Jolly Roger. The haiku flag. It's a volleyball instead of a it's a volleyball instead of a skull. So something like that. You want it to be like the perspective, and then maybe in the second pose the person points. Right? So 1 and then 2. If you want to add in some more layers, you can have the captain in the foreground here. Like have the top of his head or something be here. Just to give it a little bit more depth if you really want to. You can soft focus it like you had before. Art Mark says, perspective, my reoccurring on me. Captain, your mustache. Senpai, no mustache. So when you're learning Japanese, there's sometimes people come with some crazy sayings like when someone says thank you and you want to say you're welcome, you say don't touch my mustache. Like doi tashimashite, don't touch my mustache. Hey, anyways, so that's fine. I like that shot. You might want to add in another panel of the lightning going off because it's always better to have 3 instead of just 2 panels so you can see a change. So it was cloudy, then lightning, then back to cloudy. And that's fine. Just add another panel. Again, make sure to hook up the captain with the previous shot. He should be closer to the mast, I think, because he's kind of far away from where he was before. But that's fine if he's looking. Pulls out his locket. That's cool. My sensei in high school taught that to me. Yeah. The corn. It's all about the corn. I can't help it. Yes, those are the real. Don't tell anyone my jokes, Caleb. How dare it? No. I love you. Looks up. Captain, I love you. This stuff is all good. I made up jokes for it, but it actually worked out pretty well with what you have. So I think it's really funny. It's really good. I love you, Captain. Maybe get Captain's reaction after this, depending on what they say. He might be like, forward. Maybe just like, batten down the hatches, and they're like, yeah. I don't know. That's cool. I like that. I like that. Hey, look, it's a volleyball. It really was a volleyball team. Whoa, that's cool. Whoa. You might want to get a shot after this. You want to see the people's what happens to the people, because if you just cut on them getting like swept away, you kind of assume that they're dead, which would really be canon now. Is that a joke? Is that a pun? But yeah, you want to get a shot, just another shot of them. Maybe they could be like on the deck, like, ugh, but unless you want to kill them, which is fine. If you want to kill them, that's totally cool. But have another shot of them afterwards, where you see the result of what happened. Otherwise, they're just dead to us, and I don't think that's what you intended. So that could be like, this would be like 1. Then whatever your shots are, the wave shot, that would be like 2 or 3. You just want that before and after. Okay, so you're not a murderer, which is good. I do appreciate that. Minmay says, for the shot with the giant storm cloud, maybe add the ship to show size comparison. Yes, that would be a very good thing to do too. There is kind of a shot of it, but yeah, if you want to indicate a little bit better, that'd be good too. Unless you're talking about the next shot, which I didn't get to yet. Oh no, that's fine. But yeah, in this shot, 3, just have a, you can still have it be like that, just have them boop. And this person's like, however you want them. Right, just make sure they're not dead. Just show them a little bit. And this is cool. I like that. He grabs, I'm surprised he grabs the harpoon. I feel like for him to grab the harpoon, he should see the mermaid first, right? Like, there's nothing that motivates him to grab the harpoon quite yet. I think him rocking around, and then maybe he gets like thrown to the edge of the boat, and then he sees the mermaid swimming, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to grab the harpoon now, because it seems like he's going to harpoon the storm. So maybe on this shot he gets thrown to the edge. He hits the edge of the boat or something. So that'd be like pose whatever. There should be another pose where he looks. So if that's one pose, then the next one should have him. Why not harpoon the storm? Exactly. That's how you fight storms. To fight storms, we have to become the storm. So have him like look off. Have him look off to the side here. So he looks off to the side, and then from that we can cut to his POV, right? Cut to his POV shot, which is the mermaid or something here, like in the water, like swimming again or something. POV shot. And then you go back to this shot where he gets up off of the railing and he walks over and grabs a harpoon, right? Because then that would make more sense. You want your shots to kind of like lead to things. If he's going to do something, there should be a reason why he's going to do it. Or if it's not indicated first, then show it afterwards. So if he grabs a harpoon first, then immediately he should go back and like point it at the mermaid or something. But there's like too many shots between that and the mermaid that make it confusing. Because I think this shot afterwards, after he grabs the harpoon, is a nice shot. I like it a lot. You just kind of have to set it up. And gets on it. That's cool. Lightning. Lightning. Oh, he falls off. You can even heighten it by having him do like the Jaws thing where he like lines it up and you have like the sight on the mermaid if you want to add in more suspense where he's like, I'm gonna kill you. You have that shot where you know what I'm talking about, where he's like looking down the barrel of the gun. How dare you tease me for my mustache? And then you cut to the opposite end where you see the arrow in frame like that. And you do it like a steady cam so it's shaky and you're there and you see the mermaid. The thick mermaid. So this is the arrow, right? This is the crossbow arrow thing. And it's a steady cam. If you put these lines on the side like that, that means either steady cam or shaking camera. Well, maybe widen it out a little bit. Make sure the framing's better than what I have here, but basically like that. Indicate with the steady cam. And then what we're gonna do is what happens after this? Then you just go back to, you can go back to him about to pull the trigger. Like maybe we pan down a little bit. We see him pan down. And you see his finger on it. Getting close. I'm gonna kill ya. Or you don't have to pan down his finger. You can have his eyes tighten. Like, you know how when people are about to fire, their eyes tighten a little bit. And then go to that shot of the ship getting hit. And that's fine. He gets thrown off, falls into the water. Very cool. The locket. Oh, it's so good. I like that. I like the locket falling. Cool. Grabs him. If you don't want to animate this person grabbing, if you don't want to animate the mermaid grabbing him, you can just have it fade and then go straight to the shot of him on shore, like gasping for breath. And then you pan over to reveal, or you like rack focus over to reveal the mermaid. And then it kind of like, we kind of understand that like she saved him. That, it depends. You can, both of these ways work, I think. Pulls it out. Going to stab her. I think you should have a shot with a knife closer to her. Or maybe that's too dangerous. Pulls it out. Oh no. I think it's fine. I think it works. Be careful of the jump cut. It might get a little jump cutty here between, because they kind of fill up the same screen position or screen silhouette. So you might just want to have him a little bit to the left, looking right. And then you can go straight on. I think that'll be fine if you go straight on there, but you should have him a little bit to the left just in case. just a little bit, just so it's not exactly the same. Um, you can even add her in if you want to really change the silhouette of the character. You don't have to show her ears. The ears can be the reveal. You know what? If you really wanted to reveal it, you could have her hair covering her ears, right? Like you could have it covering her gills. Oh, but then he wants to kill her because she looks like a mermaid. Never mind. I take that back. I take it back. Yeah, I take it back. Don't do that. I think the rest of it is good. I like all this. I love you, fish woman. Captain, I love you. I love you guys too. Yeah, the rest of it is good. I like it a lot. I think this is, you have really good shot choices. You use cameras really well. You use like rack focusing. You have some good compositions. The story is heartfelt. So a lot of good stuff. You guys had some really good stuff tonight. Just make sure you have a background in here like that, and then boom, you got yourself a stew. You add in like a close-up, some wides, and before you know it, you got yourself a stew. Make it however you want. So I love all the stuff that you guys did. I think, oh shit, sorry, I hit that mermaid. Yeah, there's some really good boards. There's some really funny stories that you guys have done. Like these are great. I think you guys have a very good sense of shot choice and shot flow, which is good too. I think those things are harder to teach than composition. So yeah, it's good stuff. I think you guys have some really good foundations to work off of, and going forward, I'm just excited to see what you guys do. Let me save this and upload a link so that if you guys want, you guys can look over the storyboards as well. Oh shoot, I need to upload it actually. Does anyone have any more questions before we finish off tonight? It's already 11 o'clock. We started a little bit late, so we're ending a little bit late, which is fine. But if you guys have any questions, let me know. Maybe, I have a question for you guys. Did you guys like it better on Twitch or on YouTube? I feel like YouTube tends to draw more people in and is more educational. And it just seems a little bit slower, but other than that, I think it's fun. Yeah, so let me know if you guys like YouTube better or Twitch. Maybe I'll keep playing around with it. Here is the link to the Google Drive file, the notes from tonight. It has all the stuff from everyone. Again, I didn't even thank you for sharing. I know a lot of people have stuff that that's very personal to them, so I appreciate that you guys shared your work. I'm very appreciative that you guys even come to me for review. So thank you. Thank you guys for showing up as always. And next week, Tuesday, we'll try to do this again. I'm going to be out of town on Friday, so no Friday stream, but we'll do Tuesday again next week and more storyboards. Yeah. Yeah. My voice. Yeah, I'm a little worried about the copyright stuff for YouTube. That is something that I am a little worried about. I know that you can show things if you're doing it for educational purposes, critiques, or for humorous commentary. That being said, I think some of the clips I have are sometimes a little bit too long. I think it has to be like 10% or like 3% of what you're like. If I show 10%, if I'm streaming for like an hour, then I can only show like 6 minutes of content or something like that. So there's some weird rule, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Otherwise, I guess YouTube might be a better place. I think it's easier to talk to people. I think it's easier to let people know when I'm streaming, like you said, swearwolves. So, unless anyone has any more questions, we're going to wrap up with a joke. I think I did something nice. Swearwolf says maybe do class stuff on Twitch and do reviews on YouTube. Maybe, yeah, that might be a better way to do that. No, thank you guys. As always, thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate that you guys take your time out of your day to come here. And I appreciate that you guys share your work with me. So I hope you learned something. I hope that it wasn't too confusing. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next week. But first, what do you call a horse that lives on your street? Give up? You call it your neighbor. Get it? Neighbor. Oh yeah, Minmaze, you got it. Wow, you guys all got it. Oh wow. Maybe that's a badge. Okay. This is even better. What do cats do when they join a monastery? This one's so good. What do cats do when they join a monastery? They take a... Oh, that's pretty good. Parade is pretty good. That's pretty good. But they take a meow of silence. Oh, that one tickles me. Alright, guys. I will see you guys next week, Tuesday. Tell your friends a joke, because that's great. Thanks for coming out. See you guys. I'm ending the stream. Peace.